And I had to sacrifice a little bit, just a little. The breakthrough that I think could shift the entire industry is because we have around us, there is biologically
Hello,
intelligent
everyone.
system.
Welcome to today's podcast. We have a special guest, Dr. Tuba Ozdemir, an assistant professor in nanoscience and biomedical engineering department at South Dakota School of Mines. Her research focuses on advanced biomaterials for wound healing, tissue regeneration, and fibrosis. The interesting part of her journey is intertwined when her NIH-funded postdoctoral training and patented Hyaluronic binding peptide technology underpin the scientific foundation of our entrepreneurial journey in Ovas. Nice having you in the new year. I know you have fundamental, strong research base, and what's very amazing is someone from that aspect of research has translated that into a world of business. What breakthrough do you believe has the greatest potential to shift an entire industry?
Thank you, Amit. And it's a great pleasure to start the new year with this podcast. And like you mentioned, my research lab at South Dakota Mines, Nanoscience and Biomedical Engineering, studies bio-inspired systems such as inspiration from biologically intelligent materials like silk fibroin or our natural proteins that binds to a regenerative molecule called hyaluronic acid led us to build InnovaSkin. And this example could be a great, unique sample for the breakthrough that I think could shift the entire industry is because we have around us, there is biologically intelligent systems. For example, spiders have been using silk for over centuries, and humans started utilizing it for textile industry. We started utilizing this unique material for different purposes, such as semiconductor alternatives, wound healing systems, implants like regenerative implants. So with the brisk and the turn of AI and the capacity that it can leverage us, we can use these systems and we can create hybrids. For example, in the case of InnovaSkin, we use like this sustainable biomaterial silk, and then using a solid phase peptide synthesis method to kind of capture the sequence, like meaningful peptide sequences from hyaluronan binding peptides, and create this hybrid to enhance skin's ability to regenerate, for example, scarlessly, for example, restoring itself as we age, we lose some of these components. So I believe there's a tremendous potential lies in there. We can create hybrids and we can test them before going into the tedious tasks of lab work, experimentation by using AI and digital revolution that is associated with that, the tools. Um, when it comes to your question about scaling, this has been as the InnovaSkin established and we start growing and scaling, considering these scalings, this has been a huge question in my mind too. How could we scale this and how could we make it applicable to different, like topics? Like how could this unique combination can be used for different, purposes? So this lies in still, in my opinion, this lies in the still fundamental thinking. Because when I first started my faculty position, my intention was not to start a company. My intention was to build a research program that could answer some of the fundamental questions in regeneration, wound healing. So for that, we discovered this usage of hyaluronic acid binding peptides in, like scar-free regeneration. But when you look at wound healing, majority of society takes wound healing as a, like a process,
Hmm.
such as you have a cut, you have a surgery, and your body closes this cut and then starts to form a scar around it. But actually, wound healing happens throughout our life in many different places. For example, a worker who works in a ship building business inhales many chemicals or nanoparticles that goes to their lungs and create like mini scars or mini wounds, and their body starts healing it. Or a woman um, getting a silicone breast implant is basically getting an implant to her body, and our body creates this like wound healing response around this implant. So we started asking the questions about how can this regenerative healing ability of developing human embryo can be mimicked in wound healing scenarios of the adults, and can we really reverse that with hyaluronan binding peptides? So definitely scaling up in the definition of real scaling up requires, manufacturing and considering the manufacturing and, like Internet of Things, and basically without compromising the biological function and considering the regulatory and claims clarities, and maybe building some cross-disciplinary teams and international teams to scale, in a more economical and fast manner. But also, scaling to me also means that building something that could be useful for other purposes. Innova Skin, Innova Serum, the serum that we created is primarily we are, this serum is for, anti-aging purposes. However,
Right.
the science actually could be applied to surgical wound healing and, like fibrosis associated with environmental factors, and maybe even have implications for cancer. So, as a scientist and academic, I'm also thinking from that perspective in addition to the manufacturing perspectives.
Understand. What's very interesting, and maybe I'll take this particular question with so that our viewers and listeners get a little more clarity. So, will it mean, for example, I won't have any wrinkles? I will not age. Is that a possibility with this external healing? Same way, there are a lot of internal wounds that happen. In an extreme situation, could be ulceration. In another extreme, it could be the rupturing of the arteries that might sometimes happen in the brain and elsewhere. Right? Will such kind of healing be also possible? Do you see them happening?
Um, I approach this from a kind of an analogy of a car engine.
Okay.
So there is certain number of pieces an engine have.
Right.
And if you know which pieces and exactly memorize how many pieces and how to put it together, it works every time.
Right.
So in biology, I think it is pretty much the same uh, because the wound healing of a developing embryo has a consequence of events that involve certain biological molecules.
Mhm.
And if you fully understand the whole pieces of this engine, if you look at, for example, an embryonic wound healing, which heals without scars, um, from the similar approach from an engine, if we could understand all of the pieces, then we can reverse engineer to have the similar ability as adults. Obviously, our environments are different. We don't live in this like little like quiet and like wet environment that provided with. But this if we can use techniques such as CRISPR, for
Hmm.
example, one of these
Gene
new
editing.
techniques such as CRISPR to introduce some genes or block some of the genes that involved in this process, create an environment, for example, from bio-inspired materials such as silk fibroin and
Hmm.
hyaluron binding peptide that could enrich the regenerative, like extracellular cues to the cells. Cells can behave like they should be behaving when they are in the developing embryo. So
Hmm.
my approach is we can really engineer the environment too, in addition to engineer the biological response.
This is very helpful. So it's not just curing the parts of the engines or the different organs in the body, could be external or internal, but also ensuring that it mimics based on the environment that is induced as a part of it to do that. So this, in a
Exactly.
way, more about modeling and computational methods, which I understand before you actually go to a wet lab and further finally develop that into a serum or an applicant, those kind of thing, right? So, uh, how much time do you think you spent? So, if the whole project cycle is 100, how much time generally takes into the modeling and computation, and then before it is sees the light of the day in form of a successful molecule? I'm
Mhm.
trying to compare the traditional wet lab research to a hybrid wet lab and a computational modeling based approach to a product at a scale.
Mhm. That's a great question. My expertise lies in the biomaterials and, basically tissue engineering. And I teach tissue engineering here at Mainz. If you asked me this question maybe 5 years ago, when I first started my job, I would answer in a way that from a very fundamental approach, you study, you look at the gap, you try to form a hypothesis, and then test it. Whereas now, as the field evolved and as well as, usage of AI in biomaterial discovery has expanded and tools developed, and some of the collaborations I formed with my colleagues at here at School of Mines led me to think more, spending more time on really the modeling portion where my student who is working on the biomaterial development either do a design of experiments approach before she starts or he starts, or we do some of the mining sources to pull out some potential candidate sequences, peptide
Hmm.
sequences, before we start testing it, even with the design of experiments.
Okay.
So I'm looking at this in a way that it's a more strategic and more planned approach than just, relying on the current knowledge, but also more exciting because these tools can help us look for other species
Hmm.
and, create, for example, hybrids that are coming from, I think this has been around for a very long time, and the field of synthetic biology
Hmm.
heavily, deals with that. But from a biomaterials perspective, it is relatively new and adventurous way to test. Uh, but one thing I want to add, because last year I attended this 2-day workshop about AI in biomaterials discovery. where actually they were also emphasizing self-operating labs, where some of the experimental, basically explorational experiments could be done in combination with the AI, so that we could really boil down to more interesting hits and more interesting targets
Mm.
that
Okay.
evolve and help with this building these adaptive systems.
Thank you. This is interesting because the scientific discoveries, the real science, and the earlier the science fiction, which used to be called that phase, becoming more of a reality by virtue of the research that is going on. With this, let me move on to my next question, which my viewers will be very intrigued to understand. Many organizations struggle to translate scientific discoveries into real business outcomes. You have navigated both research and industry, both these environments. In your experience across both of these, what are the critical enablers that allow this deep technology innovations, like research in the field of computational uh, quantum chemistry or modeling around that, the biomolecule, biomaterial modeling, computational biology, like yours, to move that from the pure academic aspect to market ready solution that can provide measurable enterprise value.
Well, this is a very great question. And the other thing that helped me evolve and understand this was my entrepreneurial, basically, aspirations that evolved over the course of this last 4 or 5 years. Because the story has, two edges.
Mm,
And to me, the enablers, first, I think, problem first kind of framing, because when you build a research, for example, program as anybody, like not only as a faculty, but when you want to solve a problem, if you really focus on a problem first approach, and your research must be kind of anchored to a clear and high value problem, not just technical novelty. That would be a very great enabler for this type of, translation. And with computational acceleration, actually, this will really reduce trial and error and maybe shorten development cycles. For example, computational quantum chemistry, computational biology, synthetic biology, and all the tools that are now available. It's much easier compared to 10 years ago. You
mm,
really needed to have much, like deeper skill set to search for targets than now. And, I even, sometimes assign homework problems in my courses for students to discover some of these like tools. So that is kind of the second important enabler, this computational acceleration, the power that we have. And of course, the protection of this unique, um, you know, problem solving strategy. Like, so your IP strategy should be aligned with this market use of this, solution that you have. So the patents basically must protect this embodiments. I also realized this summer that having a clear IP strategy is very important for a company,
right.
you know. And the earlier you do it, the better off when you have a team who will handle that. You will have a system. And finally, the early industry feedback. So, past year, I enrolled in this, Wharton Chief Technology Officer program, not to educate only myself, but also communicate with all the technology leaders in the field and in other fields so that I can get some feedback. And this was invaluable for me, especially someone coming from academia. This expanded my network,
Mm,
and I got really good insights from, by basically engaging the end users and partners about, this early and hearing their inputs that prevented me to do some over engineering. I could
mm,
use this time
right.
to more valuable things such as scaling up or my manufacturing. So for me, these are primary enablers. And the other part of your question was, I think, some shifts. And one thing we have done, maybe I can say this here, with InnovaSkin, which really helped me, was so I formed the company about a year ago. And sometime in June, before we do a commercial launch, I decided to do a beta launch
Okay.
where we tested, first of all, the go-to-market approach, the product, and like the customer feedback in a local Medicipas. And approximately 100 people tested my product for 24 weeks. And I meet with them. I meet with every individual at the beginning and some of the follow-ups and at the end. This really helped me a lot.
Mm,
And I
okay.
don't know how any other, entrepreneur can do that. But right now, I have a very clear mind about our commercial launch. And this is only because I did this and I took the initiative. On top of my faculty position, I had to sacrifice a little bit, just a little bit. But um, this is another learning, and
Mm,
it's very important. I recommend that.
good. Now it is very clear, and as you mentioned, how you're prioritizing at the given point in time. That's also a part of learning of the scaling up as well, right? IP is one of the portion that you mentioned, right? It is not just for technological uh, excellence or innovation, but having something both which is technologically superior and of real value to the end user, real value for the people who will be actually getting it at the end of it. And if I look into that aspect of IP strategy, it is fundamentally very crucial for your product launch. Now, if I look into that aspect of IP strategy, a question that comes to my mind, which you may answer, you may not answer, depending on your future innovation aspects on this. So, this is the core, right? When you're actually talking about the IP, which has to be created, and you are saying that way, but you need to safeguard your IP, how much you really explain, how much you do not, but it is also connected to a future state that you're looking for, right? Which you have in your mind much more clearly than anyone else who is thinking or not thinking about this, right? So, how do you protect that part, the whole trajectory of the journey, so that it is well taken care of? At the same time, your communication strategy, your go to market strategy uh, is also not hampered. It's a nice different dilemma for a uh, you know place where you are the founder.
Well, I mean, that's also another interesting question because I have a history about this,
Okay.
and I can answer your question from my unique perspective. Of course, other people may think other way, but when I come up with this HA binding peptide, utilizing HA binding peptide for wound healing, it was approximately 4 years ago, like 1 year after I started Sato I had that idea and I immediately communicated with my school's, tech transfer office. And they were very, excited about this idea. And we decided to go ahead with the patenting. This is how the things move in that. I never talk about that until last year.
Okay.
So the patent, I ask for very strict privacy from our tech transfer office, not to share this idea with even, schools, mentors like entrepreneur mentors who are under strict CDAs.
Hmm.
I asked them to not talk about it. I thought I should have a clear way to go to market before I started like spilling the beans.
Mhm.
But when InnovaSkin started, my university find me a mentor, kind of a academic mentor, translation of an entrepreneurial mentor. And he is a consultant and but also works with university faculty who really is experienced in innovation. And my conversations with him really shaped my future because we have with HA binding peptide a platform technology that could be applied in different ways. We can make different tools. InnovaSkin is an outlet, the first outlet. But my conversations with him and also learning more about this really helped me build my IP strategy.
Okay.
So, and along the way, there were some people, I just want to mention this because this is also important. Patents are important, very important, but you have to give all the details in patents. How
Right.
about secret sauces? How
Right.
about secrets?
Right.
You know, those are also important. But patents, in my opinion, patents come first. You have to protect your unique idea and maybe then build your own secret sauce in your lab or in your production, for example, in our skins production facility. So that I also want to emphasize, yes, I acknowledge the secret sauces, working with lawyers, tech transfer officers, for example, your
Right.
network of entrepreneurs, so that you understand, because you are the person who created the idea. They can't think for you, but you can use some of their experience to build your strategy, your game plan. How are you going to play this war? Like basically strategize this so that you wake up one day and a company already have a product that you have in mind.
Right.
Protect yourself.
You are the person now dealing with so many people, right? You are talking with your network, you are talking to your advisors, you're talking to your patent lawyers, go to market people, extended team, and all of that. And it's this very interesting aspect, people to understand the dilemma and the conflict and how some of that has been managed by you. Tuba. If you are advising a board today, what strategy blind spots do you believe leaders underestimate?
Well, um, materials. Actually, earlier civilizations valued materials probably more than we do.
Okay.
Because if you look at iron, like if you look at ancient Egypt, they were so curious about understanding the materials and the materials interactions with human body or like, other things like reactions, like, or alchemists,
Right.
like, so these are very important. But, when we look at the boards or like the big companies who are managing the technology innovability or bioinspiration, biomimetics as risky, like, because of some future risks or compliance issues rather than strategic assets. So if I were to list maybe the blind spots from my perspective is, for example, if I were to advise, materials would be my main strategy. Materials, choices, and how we can utilize surrounding support system to lock in the cost, sustainability, and performance for decades.
Right.
This is one thing. And the other one is uh, how can we ensure the sustainability approach, for example, like green material, like that can't scale or lack durability is not sustainable. Brief example from Innova Skin. So silk fibroin that we use in our, serum is a protein,
Right.
and there's thousands of peptides there, and we use sustainable approaches to extract this. We call it regeneration. Binding peptides are certain and repeat uh, peptide sequences that we synthesize in a solid phase peptide synthesizer. It's a very expensive compared to the silk approach, but this method ensures us to have the same sequence every time and without any mutation and very high purity, because this is the proprietary part of our formulation. Hyaluron binding peptides are our proprietary formulation. So how did we balance that? Like, why didn't we also get a hyaluron binding protein and chop it up and, like mix it with silk so that we can get that? Or how does that strategy fit in our future IP strategy for expanding this portfolio of the peptides? So choice of that versus this, the first approach, synthetic approach versus the, top-down chopping, hydrolyzing approach, have an important decision load on me when I, advise a board. A company has a sustainability approach. They just try very hard and sometimes lose the big picture. And a third item would be the underestimating the regulatory lag. So basically, there's like this regulation follows innovation thing. But poor preparation creates delays and reputational risks. So when from a technical institution here at South Dakota Mines, we are the closest medical school to me is 5 hours driving distance. And for me, the more practical approach for going to market was Innova Skin, which came to me when I was traveling to South Korea for a conference. Like, I saw all this like people very interested in skincare. And this would be a nice way to first
Right.
speed the technology from that perspective. So definitely, you need to understand your regulatory pathways. You need to understand where it will take you, how long it will take you, but also have a strategy. Maybe keep an open mind. I don't know. Maybe at this low scale, I have the risk, and startups can take risks. We learned this in our first classes by, like Lori Rosenkopf. Like, yes, in the beginning, this is the benefit of startup. You can take maybe very big risks. Fourth one is the talent silos. Basically, um, building your talent silo by combining the digital teams, sustainability teams, and R&D um, together rather than in isolation and maybe a blind spot, that I would pay very big attention if I advise the board.
I might like to take you to a world little different. Okay. This is vision for next decade. How will you see that?
When I think about these three big, like pillars
Mm.
and human health, because I'm a biomedical engineer, I want to emphasize very important understanding about our human lifespan. So, human lifespan has been extended a significant great deal over the last century. So, we can live longer now compared to our ancestors who used to die 40, 45, 50. Look at earlier records. Um, but in my opinion, as a biomedical engineer, we can live longer, but we don't, it may not mean that our quality of life is better.
Okay,
You
right.
know, like starting with 40, uh, we already start having pain a lot every day. And, sometimes this is because of loss of joint fluid in your, like joints, and your face doesn't look as, you know, youthful anymore. I don't want to say beautiful or ugly, but this creates a considerable um loss of self-confidence in a lot of people. It's not about only women outlook. We don't look like 25, 30 anymore, and it gets down so quickly after 50. So my vision is on the next decade, mainly the not only extending the lifespan, but improving the quality of the life that we have within that lifespan is considered as longevity research. It's like this kind of hype word, just like maybe some other hype words. But longevity research is probably going to be a very emerging research topic that would leverage from, basically the material science,
Mm.
um, digital technologies, and sustainability. So for me, from science perspective, how to shift towards more bio-based, regenerative, and multifunctional adaptive materials, and how can we use AI and computational modeling, designing materials, but also in my company, how can I use AI? For example, one thing that's, in my opinion, sets InnovaSkin apart from other companies is our approach to personalized skincare. So, how can we develop digital devices like robots that can speak with an AI-based app to create a personalized experience for you towards your skincare journey? And as an entrepreneur, uh, I see myself like a kind of a bridge builder, like connecting academia, industry, and entrepreneurship. I really focus on responsible commercialization. I'm not I'm not creating a skincare company just to create a skincare company. Hopefully it will be useful.
Nice talking to you once again and wish you a very happy new year.
Thank you, Amit. I appreciate it, and it was pleasure to be your guest.